For 12 seasons, The Big Bang Theory was, well, everywhere. It just completely dominated television. But what if I told you that behind all the laughs and the bazingas, there was a whole hidden layer of reality? I'm talking real Nobel Prize winners checking the scripts, iconic characters that were basically created by accident. We're going to pull back the curtain and uncover the surprising truths that made this sitcom such a massive phenomenon.
So that's the big question, right? How much of this show was actually real? Well, you are probably going to be surprised. The line between the fiction you saw on screen and the actual facts behind it was incredibly blurry. And once you see it, it honestly changes everything about how you watch the show. All right, let's start with the first layer of authenticity. And it's something you hear in every single episode. It's something that feels totally fake, totally manufactured. The laugh track.
Except it wasn't a track at all. Get this. Every single laugh you hear on the show, that was a real live studio audience reacting at that very moment. It wasn't a button someone pressed in post-production. It was genuine, in-the-moment emotion. And that commitment to what's real, well, it started with the audience, but trust me, it went so much deeper.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of the show, the science. I mean, it would have been so easy to just scribble some fake formulas on a whiteboard, right? Nobody would have known the difference. But the creators, they went in a completely different direction. And honestly, this is what truly set the show apart from everything else on TV. Think about your typical sitcom. When they show science, it's usually just gobbledygook meant to look smart. Not here. On The Big Bang Theory, every single equation, every piece of jargon was legit. The show had a secret weapon, a guy named Dr. David Saltzberg. He's a real-deal physicist from UCLA, and his entire job was to make sure all the science was 100% accurate. We're talking everything, from the dialogue down to the little formulas scrawled on the whiteboards in the background. And this dedication to getting it right, it got noticed by some pretty important people. I mean, the legendary Stephen Hawking himself became a fan. And get this story, he once emailed the writers, not to say great job, but to point out that Sheldon had made a tiny mistake in one of his equations. Can you even imagine that? Your sitcom's homework is literally being graded by Stephen Hawking. The pressure.
And the scientific brainpower wasn't just behind the scenes either. It was right there on screen. Maya and Bialik, the actors who played Amy Farrah Fowler, well, she has a PhD in neuroscience in real life from UCLA. I mean, can you imagine being on that set? You're surrounded by all these brilliant actors pretending to be scientists, and you're the one person who actually knows what all that jargon means? The show got so respected in the scientific community that it reached a point where actual Nobel laureates wanted to be a part of it. We're talking giants of physics like Stephen Hawking, Kip Thorne, and George Smoot. They didn't just, give it a thumbs up. They actually showed up on set and appeared in episodes. The line between a hit comedy and a science convention got real blurry real fast.
Okay, so the science was planned down to the last decimal point. But here's the crazy, ironic part. The characters, the people we all tuned in for and fell in love with, a lot of them were basically happy accidents. Let's start with the big one, Sheldon Cooper. I mean, it is impossible to imagine the show without him now. But in the beginning, the producers were genuinely terrified. They were convinced his personality was just too weird, too off-putting for a mainstream audience. Well, that little risk ended up winning Jim Parsons 4 Emmy Awards. So much for that. And this really shows you how much power the audience had. Take Amy Farrah Fowler. Mayim Bialik was originally just supposed to be a one-off guest star, a quick appearance, and that's it. But the second she appeared on screen with Sheldon, the chemistry was just electric. It was undeniable. The audience went wild for her, and that one-episode gig, it turned into a 9-season run as a main character. The writers also had this incredible patience that you just don't see on TV anymore. Think about Raja's selective mutism, his inability to talk to women without alcohol. That storyline lasted for 6 full seasons. Any other show would have wrapped that up in a few episodes. And of course, the broken elevator. It wasn't just a running gag. It was a permanent part of their universe for 12 years. A constant reminder that, hey, some problems, they just stick around. Well, until the very end anyway. And this obsession with detail, it wasn't just about the long-running jokes or character arcs. The physical set itself, the apartment they all lived in, was packed with hidden logic and little secrets you probably missed. Sheldon's spot. It's the perfect example. To us, it just seemed like another one of his weird, bizarre quirks, right? But it was actually based on real-world logic. Seriously, he had calculated everything. It had the optimal airflow to avoid drafts, a perfect direct line of sight to the TV,
And it gave him a clear view of the whole room for social dominance. It was a joke, for sure, but it was a scientifically sound one. And then you've got Bazinga, a word that literally did not exist before this show. It just started as Sheldon's weird little way of signaling a joke, kind of like saying gotcha, but it just exploded. It got so huge, so ingrained in pop culture, that it's now officially in the dictionary. Think about that. A made-up word from a sitcom is now a real official part of the English language. That's crazy. But sometimes the secrets hidden on set were, well, they were a lot deeper than a catchphrase. For years, we all laughed at Sheldon's 3 knocks. You know, penny, penny, penny. It was just a funny gag. But then, in one of this show's most powerful moments, they finally revealed the reason why. As a kid, he accidentally walked in on his father with another woman. That trauma led to the 3 knocks. It was his way of giving people a warning, a chance to get their pants on. And just like that, one of the show's biggest running jokes became this absolutely heartbreaking window into his past. So when you put it all together, you've got real science, you've got characters born by accident, you've got this hidden emotional depth. What does all that add up to? Well, it adds up to a pop culture juggernaut. So let's wrap this up by looking at the staggering, record-breaking numbers behind this phenomenon. Let's start with the money. At the show's peak, the main cast was making $1 million per episode. That's not a typo. That put them in the same elite club as the cast of Friends and made them the highest paid actors on TV. It just shows you how incredibly valuable this show had become. The show also made history just by sticking around. It ran for a whopping 279 episodes. With that final episode, it officially beat the legendary sitcom Cheers to become the longest-running multi-camera sitcom in television history. Period. And let's bring it all back to that one character the producers were so nervous about. The guy they thought was maybe too weird for people to like. Well, Sheldon Cooper ended up becoming one of the most celebrated characters in TV history. Jim Parsons took home 4, count 'em, 4 Primetime Emmy Awards for that role. So, in the end, when you mix real science with these incredible happy accidents and a whole lot of heart, you don't just get a hit show. You get lightning in a bottle. This was more than a sitcom. It was a genuine cultural event that brought millions of us together every single week. Which really leaves us with one big question to think about. In today's world, with a million different streaming services all fighting for our attention, could a single show ever dominate pop culture like this again? I'm not so sure.